DMs are the best. Emails are fine, but I feel like you get caught sometimes with the talent manager who then wants certain details, and because they're looking out for their client, and sometimes there's a little bit more of a barrier to communication. So I tend to like to go through DMs.
You're listening to Stories from the Top, an inside guide to better business development. We are back once more with Lauren Roth, who is an influencer marketing specialist out of New York. Lauren, thanks again for coming on the show. Can you give us a quick intro to yourself and your background?
Yeah, so I focus within influence marketing and community engagement for consumer brands. Currently, I'm consulting, but I am looking for a full-time role. So if there's any brand founders out there, keep in touch with me. I'm on LinkedIn at Lauren Roth.
Perfect. So we're talking about influencer marketing. This is the third part of our series. And today we're going to talk about building relationships in real life with influencers. So what is the process for that? How do you have to hunt down and stalk people who are in your area? What's the process to find people in real life?
Yeah, so I think like local communities has become big, and there are some platforms. One that comes to mind immediately that I've had the pleasure of talking to the founder and head of marketing there is called Hummingbirds. They focus on like retail locations and getting influencers to go there to spread awareness about like a brand being sold at certain locations, which is pretty great. And they really, they drive conversion as influencers because they have such an engaged environment. So there's definitely platforms. I think for me, when I focused on in-person activations and events, it's been focused in New York. So I did during my time at Otherland, which is a direct-to-consumer candle company. We launched a store in Soho, and a big effort we wanted to put into play was getting brand awareness about the store's location. And this was shortly after COVID. So people were just starting to really come out and feel comfortable interacting with people. And luckily it was also summer, so warmer weather. So something we put into play at the store was co-branded events and working with another brand. We partnered with like a Dame, which is a sexual wellness gummy, to bring their mango gummy into the store, and they sold it for a day. We also had this like popsicle stand outside, and then we had a bartender come in later on and make like mango margaritas, and this kind of tied in because we had a mango scented candle. So it was like a summer kind of party, and we invited influencers from my connections through the brand who already knew were brand fans and also NYC based, as well as Dame's kind of connections to come into the store. They and this was also all unpaid, which some it is on a paid capacity, but this was really just to kind of get to know the brand. They got some free product, and in exchange, they shared the content with their followers. But our main goal there was really like to build offline relationships. I think there was a lot of times where I'd have long conversations with influencers through DMs, being like I remembered like this girl, she was moving to New York with her boyfriend, and I saw her at the party, and I was like, how's that going? And she's like, oh, we broke up, but I'm still here. So like there's those fun things that like I think stand out, only not from a brand side, but from the influencer side of like, oh wow, like they remember that. And I can also put a face to the brand, and it's not just this random person behind a screen who I have no idea who that person is in their life. So I think it's important as a brand to like make sure you have someone doing that who is willing to potentially take that offline, because I think that just elevates that relationship and communication so much more. So we saw a lot of great content from that and really great feedback. We also did our first ever pop-up at Rockefeller Center, and this, crazy enough, was at the same time as the store launch. So I decided to put it upon myself to do a kind of day at Rockefeller Center where we had this pop up. It was 200 square feet, no air conditioning. So it was for candles was interesting. We had like a fun wheel of prizes from brands we partnered with. But I also decided to reach out to brands within Rockefeller Center and just be like, hey, we're doing a pop up for 2 months and we love to like partner with you, offer some influencers some free things in exchange for content. And I was shocked to hear that, well, first of all, they all said yes, which was great. So we partnered with like Top of the Rock, Roller Rink, Grumpy's Cafe, Pebble Bar, a lot of key staples in the area. But I was shocked to hear from Rockefeller Center that they'd never done that before. And they were so excited to do it because they were like, we've never like combined all the brands together and really made it kind of like a Rockefeller event thing. So that was pretty cool to see. And they even partnered with some of the same influencers I brought in months later, which was great. So I was giving those influencers kind of another partnership opportunity. But yeah, I partnered with all these brands and then found a lot of NYC focused influencers. So like what to do for free, like solo traveling, like fun things like that. And I reached out to those. I got around 25 influencers and I let them bring a friend. And so during a 2-week period, I let them, I made sure I coordinated their tickets for the, different things and made sure the retail team knew, hey, this influencer is coming today. Make sure you have a bag ready and like really make sure you interact with them. I would try to be there in person, but like really coordinating all of that to make the experience seamless and something that they really felt, special and unique was really important. And I think it really came out amazingly. We ended up getting like 50 pieces of reusable content, pretty much all videos, reels and TikToks. And it was something we could repurpose on our feed through ads. And I think we also lucked out, like I mentioned, it was like post COVID. So I think a lot of outdoor things were really starting to kind of come back to life and people were excited to do it. So we ended up getting like a ton of foot traffic from some of these accounts. Good and bad because, sometimes when you're doing these, it's not the demo you may want, but it was super fun to kind of test and learn from it. And then another one I did was with United Sodas. So they are a better for you drink, a soda company, kind of the Ollipops and Poppies of the world. And they'd never done a pop-up before. And we did one with Versed, which is a skincare company. And we did a hydration station is what we called it in McCarran Park. And that's in Brooklyn. And we kind of just handed out, sunscreen and soda. And we ran out of product in 45 minutes. We thought that we were going to be there for 3 hours. Super successful. And we invited influencers to come and share. So yeah, I think it's a great way to build your community, but I do think you need to have a team and time to build it out. I think it takes a lot more lift than I think some people realize.
Mm-hmm. I think that's an amazing idea. All those campaigns sound like a perfect just idea to get people all together. And it's nice too, because influencers, they're looking for content too. It's like, it's tiring to come up with new stuff every day, all the time. So to give them, here's a big event we're doing. It's in the city. There's going to be all these other brands there. It's something exciting for them to actually go and get something out of it too. Not even counting the relationships they might build with you guys and some of those brands. We
Yeah, well,
actually, oh, go ahead.
I was just going to say, I actually had a influencer I'm friends with on LinkedIn was messaging saying like she loves going to in-person events and like I want to be invited to more. So I think it's becoming more of a desire from influencers to really connect with other influencers, not just brands. And so brands giving this opportunity for free is enticing. And like, I think, especially in warmer weather.
Yeah, I was going to say it reminded me of I'm in the Philly area for the people who aren't around here, but I this one marketing company I know, they do mainly restaurant marketing, and one of the things they would do is they basically fill up the restaurant, invite like whatever 50 100 influencers to come to the restaurant, have a free meal, and just kind of hang out. And it would be like kind of like an influencer party they'd throw, and it was super successful because they'd get a lot of content out of it. The influencers got to connect, and they were able to kind of, I don't want to say interview them, but get to know them and see who might be a good partner to move forward with for producing some content. So I think that whole model of let's have a big event and invite local influencers is a really smart move. Now, to throw a wrench in that whole concept, say you
Yeah.
are Dave's chimney sweepers in Omaha, how do you get
Yeah.
influencer relationships in person if you're not in a big city or close to one?
Yeah. So I actually had a conversation with a nonprofit recently. They wanted to kind of learn how they could get influencers to come to an event. They were based in DC, so that's like a not a it's not random, but it's not like LA and New York where like are big influencer hubs. And transparently, they would probably have to pay for a flight or a hotel. It would have to kind of be like an all inclusive event because that's a pay out of their pocket. Even if you had them drive somewhere, that's also kind of a pay. So like when we were doing events for some of these events, people wanted to know like, are Ubers covered? New York's a little different because like Ubers aren't that expensive. You can take the subway for $3. Like there's ways
Mm-hmm.
around it. But I think like, if there's alcohol involved and that type of thing, you want to make sure everyone's getting home safe. So you would probably have to have a bigger budget if you're kind of in the Midwest or somewhere that isn't as highly populated by influencers. Or you just have to be strategic and only partner with influencers in a certain radius. Um, I think that's the biggest thing. I mean, and my last idea, which I think would probably still involve pay, was just giving a lot of notice in terms of when the event's happening so that they can plan in advance. And if it wasn't on a paid budget, like they could be as strategic and it could be at least expensive to get there as possible.
Mm-hmm. What's a good strategy to reach out to influencers? Is it literally just connect with them on their platform and slide to the DMs, or is there like a more formal way of reaching out?
So for events, I share in my communities like Wim and some other channels on LinkedIn. But I like to DM, and then I typically send them a like photo of the flyer for the event. And what I like to do is I'm like, hey, this is happening. Let us know if you can attend. I'll follow up after a week or two if I don't hear anything. But if they can't come, I think a nice gesture is sending them still a goodie bag of things that they can then share in their story to spread the word about the activation if it's open to the public. And then they can repurpose that flyer you sent to them. So it's kind of you're adding further content for them to share about the brand and the event. But I'd say, yeah, DMs are the best. Emails are fine, but I feel like you get caught sometimes with the talent manager who then wants to know maybe certain details, and because they're looking out for their client and wanting to make the most of the relationship. So sometimes there's a little bit more of a barrier to communication. So I tend to like to go through DMs.
Yeah, do a lot of agent or influencers have agents at this point? Is that industry starting to pop up?
Yeah, I mean, I'd say I've had a lot of great conversations with talent managers, and I think it's taught me a lot about like what they value from the brand side and understand why they're charging certain amounts and all of that because they have a job to do and they're looking out not only for the best interest of their client but also for their company. I'd say it's becoming more common. I think it's just hard to manage for an influencer, depending on how big they want to get and how many paid partnerships they want to do. But there's all different types. There's people who have there's talent agencies that have rosters of hundreds, and there's some that have like 5 to 10. So it really just kind of depends on what agency these people belong to, in terms of how engaged and also willing to negotiate the talent manager may be. One other thing I can also mention, and I think from a brand activation and in-person perspective, is that a lot of people think like, oh, I'll reach out to a New York city creator and they'll share the event with their audience and we'll get a lot of people because they're in New York. But just because a New York influencer is in, like, just because the influencer is in New York doesn't mean their whole demo's in New York. So you have to really make sure you're checking like their analytics and where their customer base is, male versus female. That's something you need to look into, because it could kind of be a lost effort if you're trying to get people to attend through the influencer versus just bring brand awareness. So that takes a little bit more time and energy to really kind of, and I would say a platform to really find influencers that have followers in the area you're having your event.
That raises another question I had about partnerships. Do influencers even have to be a self-proclaimed influencer? Could it be like a neighboring brand who has a really strong social media following, and maybe you just reach out to partnership about cross-promoting some things or something like that? Like if someone has a big network on social media, is that a possibility?
For them to share on their channel?
Like let's cross-promote. I want to it doesn't have to be an event, but something like I want to connect with this business, build a relationship, and see if we can leverage each other's social media networks to kind of cross-promote our stuff.
So I wouldn't say it's done unless it's a co-branded thing, like a gift with purchase that you're going to be like, or you're leading up to a collaboration with them. It typically is like, I wouldn't say a brand would post something about another brand unless like they're founder friends and like people know that. I think it would seem kind of out of the box and random or by mistake. So I think there has to be a little bit more strategy involved if it's just like a repost of an event happening, and that brand's not involved in the event at all.
Okay, cool. Well, Lauren, thanks again. Is there any other tips you want to wrap up this conversation on those real life relationships with influencers?
I would just say, like, if you're a brand, like, do it. I think like you can be as crazy budget wise as you want, or do it, or really, do as little when it comes, or have a very little budget. I think just creating the experience is great exposure. And I think you can also get great PR out of it when it comes to like potential articles about the brand. I think it's just a win-win. And I would say like follow brands you admire when it comes to that and talk to those experts, because there's a lot of people now working within brands who literally, I have a friend who works literally on the brand side for a brand to just do activations. So I think it's becoming a huge thing. And I think it's something for brands to look into and to have built into their marketing program.
Awesome. And if anybody wants to reach out with you, get a hold of you, or might want to bring you onto their team, what's the best way to get a hold of you?
Yeah, best way would be my LinkedIn, which is Lauren Roth. Feel free to DM me and we can always take the convo offline.
Awesome. Well, Lauren, thanks again so much for coming on the show.
Yeah, thank you again.
Stories from the Top is your guide to successful business development. Subscribe wherever you get your podcasts or find Edge of Cinema on YouTube. Stories from the Top is an Edge of Cinema production, hosted by Matthew Skura and Jeremy Schmidt. To learn more or get in touch, visit edgeofcinema.com/podcast.